As telcos and policymakers argue over net neutrality and the possible reclassification of broadband, the TIA, which represents the US telecoms industry, sees further regulation as both unnecessary and unwanted.
In Washington, D.C., there's a great debate about the future of our industry and broadband and all those topics surrounding broadband driven by this national broadband plan. We like the current regulatory environment because we understand it. We've been using it for the last decade. We're seeing an enormous amount of growth in the equipment that's being deployed in these broadband networks, and that certainly is TI's members. And so where we don't know it's going is this uncertainty that's surrounding Washington with the election, with the court case, and the ability to make decisions for the future.
Now, at the centre of discussions at the moment is the whole issue of the reclassification of broadband services from Title I to Title II. What are the implications?
In simple terms, applying legacy telecom regulation on these new broadband networks and investment. We oppose that. We think that's reverse engineering of the current rules that have been the playbook for the last decade.
We're already seeing on the documentary project Connected States that broadband is enabling the creation of new jobs and is helping the economic development of the country. You seen the same things, and do you expect this to continue?
Absolutely. We're seeing more of it every day. I mean, our industry is the bedrock of the future economy of this nation and other economies, developing countries. Certainly, they are leapfrogging in some ways America's industrial base and economies. And so we absolutely agree that we're the foundation of the future 21st century economies that are coming to America, and we're involved in education, healthcare, transportation, cybersecurity, all these issues. It's just not communications anymore. We are the foundation of the future.
Now, there's a big debate at the moment over managed services, about telcos wanting to provide more advanced services separate to basic internet services. Now, how do we ensure that the majority of investment doesn't go into managed services and we don't create a two-tier internet?
Well, I think, so from our point of view, I mean, our companies are creating the devices that consumers use to access the internet. So they should have every right, should have the ability to access all forms of information and content. And so we absolutely support that, but we also believe there's got to be a fundamental principle that carriers have the flexibility to manage their services. And it's just, these are complicated networks, and you have other issues like public safety and managed services that are required to be managed on a daily basis. And so we believe that the current, again, light regulatory touch that has been there for the last 5-10 years is working.
So the TIA is calling for unregulated managed services?
Yeah, absolutely. We think that is where you're going to find the most ability to innovate, and that's where you'll find capital dollars going into those spaces that aren't regulated.
Now, in the US, we're coming up to the midterm elections. Isn't it the case that at the moment a lot of politicians are hunkering down, keeping a low profile, and not much is going to get done until after these elections in November? And if so, what's going to happen then? Are we going to see a renewed impetus?
There's an opportunity, if legislation is introduced now before the election, that Congress can still come back and legislate during a lame duck session after the elections in November. And so our challenge right now is the calendar and the members' calendar driven by the election.
Some of the loudest voices on net neutrality and reclassification are coming from the big telcos. Now, is it not the case, and is it not a worry, that this handful of companies exert too much influence over the final decision?
Well, they certainly have history, and they have, for our industry, have a significant, and not just for our industry, the U.S. economy. They're one of the largest capital drivers in the U.S. economy and globally for all communications companies. So certainly they have a lot at stake, and certainly they do have a role in our future.
How confident are you that the politicians in the US, from the president downwards, can see the big picture, that there is an overall strategy for broadband and the benefits it can bring?
You know, I used to say that members of Congress used to think that voicemail was broadband, right? And clearly that has changed. I mean, and I would say that President Obama has done a wonderful job promoting the benefits of broadband, and we support that through the National Broadband Plan, the new allocations we're hoping to see come to the industry, the 500 megahertz of spectrum. That's critical. We're very supportive of that. So I think that all policymakers, and it's coming into the homes, they all have the PDAs and the iPhones and the BlackBerries, and so they're more entrenched in this in so many ways than they used to. So I think they're getting it.
This is Guy Daniels for Connected States of America in Arlington, Virginia.